Now, I've never heard a great story that started with, "Me and a buddy had just finished a salad," but some of the biggest stories do start with some of the smallest moments. Like how a comic book thief accidentally created one of the most powerful symbols in motorcycle culture. You see, when the Pagans Motorcycle Club needed a patch design, they didn't go out and hire some fancy artist. Instead, they just straight up swiped an image from the fire god from a Jack Kirby comic book. And that burning figure became their symbol of power, and it would be recognized and respected all over the East Coast. But now that's just one of the wild decisions that made the Pagans different. I mean, picture this. It's 1957. And while most people are chasing after that American dream of a yard with a white picket fence and 2.5 children, that image and lifestyle just didn't sit well with some folks. In Prince George's County, Maryland, 13 guys decided to write their own story, and the whole thing was led by Lou Dobkin. Now, these guys weren't just starting another motorcycle club. They were building an empire that would do things differently. But now, how differently are we talking here? Well, when they wrote their constitution in the early 60s, they decided that their national president should make the same salary as the president of the United States, $100,000 a year. Okay, that's over $1 million in today's money. While the other clubs were rushing to plant their flags in every country they could reach, the Pagans were playing it cool and calculated. These guys were strategic, calculated, and purely American. No chapters in Europe, no expansion into Canada. These guys were happy with just red, white, and blue asphalt under their wheels.
Warning: the following video is meant for educational purposes only and should not be taken otherwise. Apex Crime Lords does not condone, encourage, or glorify the actions of the individuals covered in this program. Viewer discretion is advised.
Keep watching until the end to see what's next on Apex Crime Lords. So America in 1957 wasn't just Leave It to Beaver and TV dinners. My gosh, those things were nasty, especially that Salisbury steak. Anyway, after World War II, the country was really trying to figure itself out. Veterans who had been all over the world were coming home to a country that expected them to put on a suit, grab a briefcase, and just act like the war never happened. And a lot of people were able to do that. But some of these guys just couldn't settle for that cookie-cutter life. They needed something with a little more freedom, and a little more edge to it. So that brings us to Lou Dobkin. Those early meetings in his garage weren't about rides. They were about building something that would last. The early Pagans rode whatever had 2 wheels and an engine. So you got Triumphs right next to American Iron and nobody batted an eye. Because it was about the brotherhood. It was about finding your tribe in a world that was pushing for everyone to conform. But Dobkin had a vision that went way beyond weekend rides and brotherhood. He saw the potential for something bigger, something more organized. While other clubs were focused on the moment, Dobkin was thinking years ahead and planning for the future. Those early meetings at Dobkin's house were laying the groundwork for something that would become revolutionary. I mean, think about trying to organize something like this in 1957. You got no cell phones, no internet, and no text at 2 a.m. There was just no easy way to coordinate. So every decision had to be made face-to-face, and that meant every plan had to be rock solid. And the original 13 members weren't just guys who liked motorcycles. Each one brought something to the table. You got some guys with mechanical skills, other guys had organizational talent, and a few of the guys had the kind of street smarts that you just don't learn in school. Dobkin's genius was how he structured the club from the very beginning. He created a system of checks and balances that would make even a constitutional lawyer proud. Every major decision had to go through the proper channels, and every new chapter had to meet strict standards. I mean, try to picture the America that these guys were riding through when they got started. Eisenhower's interstate highway system was just beginning, which meant there was a whole new network of roads just waiting to be explored. And the roads weren't smooth highways like we have today. We're talking old state routes and back roads. The kind of asphalt that tells a story with every crack and patch. So this is perfect territory for guys who weren't interested in doing things the easy way. But now it was also time of the Red Scare. So anything that was different or anything that didn't fit the mold got some suspicious looks. So imagine these guys rolling into small towns wearing leather jackets instead of business suits and riding motorcycles instead of station wagons. I mean, back then, just riding a motorcycle was enough to make people nervous. But now here's the thing about those early days. The pagans weren't looking to shock anyone. They were just looking for their own way to live. The trouble came when society couldn't figure out what box to put them in or what labels they should be wearing. So now the pagans didn't just randomly spread across the East Coast. They moved like a chess master, thinking 3 moves ahead. Each new chapter was carefully placed and carefully built, and it was especially carefully controlled. I mean, take Pennsylvania, for example. It wasn't just about having chapters in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. It was about understanding the territory. They understood the roads, the people, and they got to know the culture. The pagans built their network with the precision of military strategists. So Maryland wasn't just their birthplace. It became their proving ground. That means every major decision and every significant move was somehow traced back to those roots in Maryland. And the Mother Club was always 13 members strong. And these guys moved around their territory like circuit court judges so they could keep tabs on everything. This mobile leadership style was revolutionary for its time. Instead of having a fixed headquarters that could easily be targeted, the Mother Club was always on the move. I mean, if you're in law enforcement, try playing whack-a-mole with leadership that doesn't stay in one place for too long. And the pagans developed a code that went way beyond your typical club rules. It wasn't just about how to ride or what to wear. They were teaching a complete way of life. Plus, their patch system, that was pretty unique. The fire god design wasn't just for show, it was a statement. When you earned that patch, you weren't just joining a club, you were becoming part of something bigger than yourself. Let me tell you, the membership process was intense. It's not like you can just sign up and get yourself a jacket. You have to prove yourself worthy. And not just in terms of riding skills, but in terms of character and commitment. But once you were in, that was it. You were either in all the way or not at all. There were no retirement plans in this club. And the pagans' approach to expanding their territory was something else entirely. While other clubs were playing Risk, trying to conquer as much new territory as they could, the pagans were playing chess. In 2011, they did look into expanding into Canada. I mean, it made sense on paper. You got lots of territory, lots of opportunities, and they even held some meetings in New Brunswick, to kind of check the place out. But in 2018, Andrew Chef Glick spilled the beans on why they decided against it. He said, in Canada and Australia, that's where the heaviest 1%ers are. Sometimes you gotta ask yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? This wasn't about fear, it was about smart business. Why start a war when you can build an empire in your own backyard? So the 1970s brought new challenges and opportunities for the club. The counterculture was in full swing, and motorcycle clubs were getting more attention than ever. The pagans were able to adapt while keeping their core identity intact. By 1980s, while Reagan was in the White House and MTV was changing culture, the pagans had built something that could weather any storm. I mean, yeah, sure, they evolved, but it was always on their own terms. Like when they made the switch to Harley Davidson only, it wasn't just about American pride. It was about identity. In a world where you could buy a motorcycle from pretty much anywhere, they drew a line in the sand and said, this is who we are, and this is what we stand for. And their understanding of brotherhood went a lot deeper than most. It wasn't just about wearing the same patch or riding the same kind of bikes. It was about creating a culture that could sustain itself through anything. And now their organizational structure, that was pretty unique too. That 13 Mother Club wasn't just a leadership team. It was more like a mobile command center. They could respond to any situation, anywhere in their territory at a moment's notice. And training new members wasn't just about rules and regulations. It was about understanding the culture. You had to respect the traditions and live by the code. When you joined the pagans, you weren't just joining a club, you were joining a way of life. Now today's pagans might surprise those original 13 riders. They got 41 chapters across 12 states and Puerto Rico. That is a long way from Dobkin's garage. But now the core of what they built, that has not changed. In an age where everything is going digital, and boundaries seem to mean less and less every day, the pagans have proven that some things don't need to change to stay relevant. These guys have kept their traditions while adapting new realities. And what made the pagans different wasn't just their approach to territory or their organizational structure, it was their understanding of identity. In a world that was constantly changing, They knew exactly who they were and what they stood for. So when they made their policy to be American only, it wasn't about xenophobia. That's fear of strangers, kids. It was about focus. They understood that trying to be everything to everyone means you end up being nothing to anyone. The pagans proved that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay true to your roots. While other clubs were spreading themselves too thin trying to go global, the pagans were building something strong that would last. Up next on Apex Crime Lords, we're going to take a look at the fascinating world of the top 5 media snitches. From guys who brought down entire crime families to the ones who just couldn't keep their mouths shut. We're counting down the most notorious informants in mob history. You think these guys were the worst of the worst? Or were they just looking to save their own skin? Join us as we explore the complicated world of mob informants, where loyalty has a price tag and silence isn't always golden. So let's wrap this up by saying the pagans' influence on motorcycle culture cannot be overstated. They showed that you can build something powerful without trying to take over the world. Their focus on quality over quantity and strength over size changed how people thought about motorcycle clubs. I mean, their legacy isn't just in the patches or the chapters. It's about the principles they established. The idea that a motorcycle club could be both traditional and innovative, both proud and pragmatic, and both fierce and strategic. When you look at Lou Dobkin's leadership style, how he built something slowly and strategically rather than rushing to expand, I mean, what does that tell us about success in any organization? Is there a lesson here that goes beyond motorcycle clubs? And the pagans chose to stay purely American while other clubs went international. Some say this limited their potential, while others say it was their greatest strength. Now, when you look at today's global world, do you think Dobkin was ahead of his time in understanding the power of focused local control? And what's most fascinating to me is how Dobkin created an organization that outlived his leadership. Unlike a lot of founders who try to maintain control forever, he built something that could stand on its own. I mean, how many leaders today in any field can actually manage to do that? So how will Lou Dobkin be remembered? That's up for you to decide. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And please comment, like, and give us a share. Until next time, stay safe and stay dangerous.